The commission for designing an identity and ultimately a logo and a word mark for Art Design Chicago, just in the same way that the overall initiative is telling a story about the history of Chicago art and design, I felt very strongly that the identity should also play that role, and it should have a backstory and it should have references built into it that people might ask about and gradually discover as the whole initiative plays itself out. One thing I love about the Newberry Library is that they have this incredible collection of type specimens, and Chicago itself was a major center in the late 19th century, early 20th century for type design and also for the manufacture of type, metal type at that point. Yeah, so for me, the logical place to start, I was looking for something bold and geometric and sharp, and this set me off on a certain track, even just pulling out a small pamphlet like this. Some modern Ludlow typefaces, Stygian black, and then we start to look further into search for Stygian black in their collection, and you start to find beautiful type specimens, promotional material that they printed to seduce printing companies to buy their metal type. And Stygian black led me on to another Ludlow typeface, ultra-modern, and this was really starting to get into the certain direction I was looking for, something really heavy, geometric, but with enough idiosyncrasies and oddness to make it feel Chicago as opposed to perhaps New York in some of the more smoother Art Deco geometric forms you might find from type at the time. And going through this and talking to Paul Gale, the custodian of a lot of these collections here at the Newberry, showing him Stygian, I think it reminded him of something, and he ran off and came back with this Cubist bold, advertising a la mode, advertising a la modern. And this was just perfect. This was exactly what we were looking for. The very kind of heavy bones, perfect weight that we needed for something bold for the identity. And I really started thinking a lot about stencils, which was yet another commodity that Chicago manufactured. It was a center of stencil production. And stencils kind of communicated perfectly what we were talking about a lot with the people at the Terra in terms of a stencil means urgency, pragmatism. There's no time for fancy sign writing. We just need to stencil it in, stamp it, send it out. It's why military materials are always stenciled. There's no time for messing around. And that kind of communicated in a subtle way this Chicago roughness and bluntness of we just got to roll up our sleeves and get something done. That kind of spirit in Chicago has been applied in experimental as well as practical ways. We were gradually getting this perfect combination of a simplified version of Cubist bold made into a stencil, something that even in let alone print forms, but even in web forms, we can use the stencil to kind of place on top and stamp through artworks, which then reveal themselves. So in that process, it started even adding to a kind of kinetic, moving quality. The idea that Chicago is always moving. We're dealing with a certain time frame, but things keep moving. And the stencil has ended up becoming a fundamental part of that as a cropping device that can then be pulled away and revealed or applied on top of again.